First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for the amazing support for the last video. If you want to know more about Pseudoregalia, the game that Rittzler made, go ahead and go watch that video. Otherwise, if you've already seen that, this is just my interview with him, completely uncut, the whole thing. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. Yellow.
Hello.
Hi, how's your day going? Everything going well?
Yeah, it's been pretty all right. Got some groceries. I was actually playing Pseudo a little bit, for reasons.
For reasons. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for agreeing to actually sit down and answer some questions that I had about it. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I uh always like talking to people about this stuff a few times. Get to talk about myself.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh
um,
More so talk about my interests. That's the which is my shit. Yeah, what's up?
110%. Um, all right. So I've got the questions down here, the
Yeah.
ones that I sent you. Um, if you don't mind, depending on your responses, I might ask you like another question or two, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, no, you don't have to keep to the script. That's fine. It was just good to get a little bit of a heads up. Honestly, I didn't like super commit to this. Wanted to have them just so it was at least primed somewhere in my head. Also, formally, hi, I'm Ritz. I had
Hello,
um,
I'm Honey. I do mostly streaming. I've been trying to break into making videos. I'm pretty happy with how this one's turning out so far, and
cool.
I'll 100% be sending it your way when it is done so that you can see it.
Yeah,
And then if you hate it, you can publicly disavow it and say it's terrible and takes you out of context and is awful and stuff.
yeah. Uh, I'll uh I'll say I will probably watch it day one. I might not uh respond to it
No,
right
you're
away,
fine. You're
but
fine.
I'm very bad about getting back to people sometimes. But know that uh,
I
I
have no
still
expectations. I'm just happy to be able to ask some questions.
I watch basically all the videos people have made about pseudo, um, and I appreciate every single one.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like it would be hard not to.
it's yeah, no, don't make no mistake. I name search this game every day. uh,
um,
and somehow there still continues to be results. So, you know.
yeah, and I mean the game came out like over a year ago at this point, right?
Yeah,
No,
and like
maybe.
it's been a year and over a half, almost two now, which is a little scary, honestly. I was honestly hoping I was gonna have another game out by now, but I
I,
had to do some soul searching, I guess.
I mean, I don't think. Just personally speaking, I don't think your mental health and being safe and okay comes before releasing funny games that people can play in their free time and just have fun with.
Yeah. It's I mean it's a whole thing. I won't get super into it, but it's not like I explicitly needed it for I mean, I think it was worse for my mental health that I wasn't working, frankly. I wanted to be working on something the whole
Mm-hmm.
time. I just couldn't really. I have problems, ADHD, the probably depression, whatever else.
The life of a
Um,
creative.
yeah, the fucking like free list you get as a millennial these days. Um,
All right.
but yeah, I'll let you get started with your questions properly.
No, you're totally good. I didn't mean to like
Okay.
interrupt you. But to get properly started,
Yeah.
uh I was just curious, like, what actually drove you to become not only like a game designer, but like just a developer, 3D artist? Like, what, like, really pushed you into like wanting to actually do this?
Um, so unfortunately, I don't really have like a really cool story for all of this. Like many things in my life, I kind of fell into game development. Um, I started creatively. I started just as I guess an illustrator, um, and specifically a character designer and artist. And I always I always fucking love video games, right? Since wee babby,
Mhm.
always wanted to play my brother's fucking GameCube and accidentally erase all of his save files. Um, Overwrite them. It wasn't malicious, but
Yeah.
what is it? For a while, I figured if I was gonna get a job in the industry, it would probably because I was never much of a programmer. I tried programming when I was like, in my like early early teens, right? Like 13, 14, 15, like Game Maker 1 and stuff. Didn't really
Mhm.
go anywhere. Made some little test projects, little whatever, like tutorial shmups. It didn't really stick. Um, Tried some 2D stuff even. But I figured if I was ever going to get anywhere seriously with this, it would be as a concept artist because that was the thing I was best at. And even then, I wasn't really that good. Uh, Secret about the industry too, with that sort of thing. Not secret, but the thing I didn't like realize is that just because you make good character designs doesn't necessarily mean you are good for an industry hire. Because to be a concept artist uh, for the industry, you also actually need to be a really good artist too. You can't be a mediocre artist and a really good designer. That doesn't really fly because you need to be good enough to sell your ideas to the higher ups, right?
Mhm.
Um, so if you're like, it's okay for me that I'm not like the best illustrator because I know roughly what it's supposed to look like, and I just need that again, that concept on paper. And then I can, make it a 3D model and everything. But I guess it is all to say, to get back to the question more directly. Um, I started as an illustrator, tried to get into game design from that vector. I wasn't really going anywhere with it. I wasn't really taking it seriously. I didn't go to college or anything. But I did hear that Unreal was supposed to be very good for artists to make games with. I'm like, I'm an artist, and I kind of want to make games, but I didn't really think it was possible. Um, but um, what inspired me was a lot of smaller games that had come out around the time. Stuff like
Mhm.
A Short Hike or the Torii games. Which are, very, very conservative, small little games that also did well for themselves, as well as the Unreal stuff. And it was also the year, or a little bit after, uh, the year Hat in Time Mario Odyssey came out, which kind of like reignited my passion for 3D platformers specifically.
Mhm.
And this all kind of fell together. I had also, being an illustrator, and just on the PC a lot, I had just dabbled in 3D modeling and animation and stuff over the years as well as drawing. So I was kind of set up like pretty decently well to be like the kind of like jack of all trades you need to be like a and I'm not a solo dev technically. I am I guess I am at the moment because my current projects I'm working on alone, but for Pseudo obviously I did have, um I did still have Matt, who did
Mhm.
a pretty good amount of the work. He did the level design for a couple of the areas and all the textures. I had my musicians who contributed a huge amount to the game's, overall feel.
Mhm.
Um, but I still did a lion's share of the work, and I wouldn't have gotten anywhere if I didn't have, those other skills I just kind of accrued over time that made the game like presentable and workable and everything. Um, Yeah, and I don't know, I just started messing with Unreal, and it just kind of kept going slowly. I started, picking up a little more. It felt like it was becoming more real, something I could do. I did bounce off. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The first time
Mhm.
too, it was going well for like a month or so. Then I kind of ran into a bunch of walls. I didn't really understand what to do, and I kind of died again. And I'd say it came back properly. Oh God, I don't like thinking about time. Maybe 2 years before Pseudo. Um, I uh, I like really started to get my foothold um in it with Blazing Dynamo, which is like my first like real kind of project.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I looked at it. Ow. Sorry, my cat is stabbing me. I was looking at I looked at all your games on itch, and there's a lot of like great stuff there. You can sort of see some of the DNA
yeah,
for like
yeah.
where it led to pseudo.
I definitely think you can kind of track my progress with a lot of stuff. There's also a few things that aren't quite there, but like you can still see videos of like Goodnight Sunlight. There's a lot
Hmm.
of ideas there that or like the bear game. What is it? Radical Avalanche, I called it. That kind of
Yeah.
a lot of ideas kind of made their way into pseudo. It's almost entirely pseudo as like, in terms of like Sybil's kit doesn't really have any new ideas. It's almost entirely composite of other shit I did. But it worked out. Um, anyway, uh, yeah, again, I don't really have like a great answer, I guess, to the question. It's just like I very slowly picked up the skills over time on my own. Um, that became that would like contribute to my ability to make games in a way that I find satisfactory and
Hmm.
like engaging. And then when I eventually did to get to making games, I was just able to do that. And I wasn't like perfect at them, so obviously I'm still better at those things uh now than I was then. But even then, only in so many ways. I'm still not. I don't think I'm like a markedly better animator than I was, honestly, when I begun this stuff. I am better, but it's not like holy shit, yeah, you can feel the improvement. It's like, yeah, it's better. That's it's fine.
Hmm.
But that's the case of being kind of again jack of all trades stuff as everything kind of levels up slowly. Instead of, like, oh, I'm gonna grind out my fucking animation fundamentals and get real good at that. Which
Hmm.
I mean, frankly, if I actually like sat down and picked a thing to focus on, I probably could have done that for animation or coding or environment art or something. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. Also, I hope you don't mind if my answers are in general a little rambly. That's just kind of
You
how I.
are totally fine.
But yeah, I hope that roundabout roughly answered the question.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Um, so as you like previously mentioned with like Radical Avalanche and a few of the other games that you mentioned, you've already released some projects on itch.io before.
hmm
Uh, I know Pseudo's pretty large in scale in comparison to those.
hmm
How did it feel to actually like finish this and be able to release it?
it's a good question. I wish I had a better memory. I wish I could like idyllically recite how I felt on that day and the emotions and etc. Like I was Tim Rogers or something. But I have quite a bad memory. But the general feelings, I guess, are um again when we finished Pseudo, it wasn't even like intended to be, like a commercial thing or anything, right? I was just like I had just been kind of fixated on Metroidvanias. As happenstance, I decided to play through a lot of the Metroid games I hadn't touched before earlier in the year, and some of the Castlevanias too. I finally played Symphony of the Night the year before making Pseudo.
Hmm.
I played Eco, and I think you can feel a lot of those three in there. Um, what is it? I was just like, I saw the Metroidvania gem coming up, and I was like, I feel like I have a good idea of what I would want out of a Metroidvania of like the kind of game that I make, being 3D platformers. There's not a lot of them.
Hmm.
Um, just like I could probably name all of them that you could seriously consider on one hand, like the Prime trilogy, I guess, like the Superland, if you want to count that, which it's more like a first-person adventure game, I guess, in the way that like Prime maybe is, but it still has a
Hmm.
platforming bend. And Blue Fire, um, which is Blue Fire is a good game, but it did leave me wanting a little bit, which is part of the reason Pseudo is here, I think. And I don't
Mhm.
know, maybe like fucking Banjo Tooie, depending on who you ask. But it's slim pickings, which always felt wrong to me. Um,
Mhm.
there's so many 2D Metroidvanias. Why are there so few 3D ones? Uh, Especially platformer oriented. That's a whole other can of worms. Feels like
Mhm.
Batman Arkham Asylum counts. Yeah,
Sure.
not in the platformer sense, but with 3D
No, no, no,
Metroidvania.
no. I get you. I get you.
But I this is to say, we made pseudo in the jam, and I just kind of looked at it when we were done, and I was like, Matt, this is like the thing I wanted to do.
Mhm.
What the hell? We just it's been a month, and I've got the thing I wanted sitting in my lap now. Um, because I wanted you know trying to figure out what my first game would be took a while, and ultimately the answer again, it kind of came to me rather than being something I searched for, and it was still important I did that searching, right? Um,
Mhm.
I uh, I made Blazing Dynamo, I made Goodnight Sunlight, I made uh, what is it, Radical Avalanche, and there, a few other much tinier test projects, and I was like a good bit into Electrokinetic when I decided to just take a little break from it with this, and then I'm like, oh, this is the thing I wanted. That's like, I was really worried also about the Steam refund period, which like, I, I think isn't actually as nearly as big of an issue as people made it out to be. I think that's mostly an issue if you have like a very shallow and uninteresting game that is also less than 2 hours.
Mhm.
And then when people play like a 40 minute I don't want to like throw anybody under the fucking under the bus, but like if you've made like a 40 minute like asset flip like bin horror game kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
Like don't be surprised and people if people refund it. Um,
Mhm.
but I think if you do genuinely make any kind of game that like like you've put care and effort into, people, it's not really an issue.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, I was still scared of it at the time. And I was like, I really need to make at least a 2 hour game. And the game jam version of Rittzler was about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours for most people to play through. I was trying to think of Goodnight Sunlight was supposed to be like a 2 hour like linear game, like 2D platformer.
Mhm.
Originally, it's not anymore. But I it kind of ballooned out of scope, and I couldn't cut it down anymore, so I tried to think of a different angle of something to do. So I thought of Electrokinetic, it's a roguelike, very common for indies for obvious reasons, but it's also like a new spin on the genre, which is interesting. I think roguelike is a very interesting framework to attach to a game, but a
Mhm.
lot of people make very similar kinds of roguelikes. Obviously, it's like a few key genres or like types that get made, but like 3D platformer roguelike is like not one of them. Again, there's like uh the I forget Phantom Abyss is like the closest I can think of the first person like Indiana Jones thing. Um
Mhm.
and there's a couple really obscure ones like Tower Princess that no one really played either, but I don't think they done a particularly good job of captivating people. Um anyway, um it it just kind of happened, and it was uh pseudo, and it was really cool. I was mostly just really proud and happy, I guess, to have finally finished something, because I was kind of treading water and switching projects a lot. I was like really concerned that I was never actually gonna be able to properly finish something like to scale.
Mhm.
um but I was just really relieved and proud of my ability to actually sit down and figure things out and make a plan and execute on it. Um, it was also very stressful, of course, up until release, because Pseudo was literally being made up to and after release, working right up to that deadline. Don't want to do that again. Um, don't I want to give myself at least a month's clearance before I even like announce a release date for a game next time.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it was good though at the time though, because like again ADHD and everything, having a hard deadline like that I don't feel confident about being able to change was really good about just forcing myself to continue to work on it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, those are I guess those are roundabout the things. Um, and obviously, it was a general thing. A lot of stress going into the into release, but then also, again, being proud of it that we did it, that it was finished and it was out. Being relieved that people like it and that was actually doing pretty good, pretty damn good. And then I was also feeling when I was done with it. This is part of the reason the map took so long. Is when I was done with it, I was also like, I don't want to touch this fucking game again. I want to be, I want to be free. I want to do something else. I want to do literally anything else. Not because I didn't like it, but because I'm just like, I didn't want, when I thought I was done with it and I didn't had to keep working on it, and then I felt like I still needed to do more to it to fix it up. It just kind of just had like a weird effect on me in terms of
Hmm.
my ability to work on the game. I feel a lot better about it now. Because I feel like I don't know, like it's I've mentioned on Twitter and stuff that like there is a switchboard that is being worked on.
Hmm.
Um, and I do have someone to help me with the lion's share of that, but I am still, pegging away at it, doing some bug fixes or quality of life things. And I don't feel nearly as bad about touching the game now as I did before.
Hmm.
I've had some time away from it to, again, collect myself and everything. But there was definitely a period of time I'm like, I'm really happy it's out. Don't want to see you again. You guys can have Sybil go crazy. I'm gonna be over here. Yeah.
Hmm. You actually mentioned earlier that you were like you never wanted to put that intense of like a deadline crunch on yourself again, like because you announced the release date and you like weren't quite sure that you were ready for it yet. I was sort of curious if you had any other like large things sort of like that are things that you did with this project, but you probably are just like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that again.
Not really. I think for the most part, it's like a lot of like I do actually want to do a lot of this again and do it better. I mean, that pseudo was supposed to be originally. It was just supposed to be like, I mean, it still is, but it's largely a proof of concept.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, okay, I want like a 3D Metroidvania to exist in the vector that I like.
Hmm.
But it doesn't really exist, so I had to bring it into the world. And I'm glad I did. Because I think it showed people. It genuinely was. I mean, I see. I know another question is the reception. I guess I can kind of bridge these two. Um, Pseudo fucking it blew me away in terms of reception.
Hmm.
I thought I would be lucky to get 500, maybe if we're really or reviews, maybe if we're really lucky, break like the 1,000 mark. Matt's previous game, it did
Hmm.
fine, but it like it's sitting floating around 300 to 400 right now. I know a lot of games that are very good that are sitting in that range and just never really blow up like they probably deserve.
Hmm.
But at least in depending on your viewpoint, I guess. But I guess with Pseudo, it was genuinely like uh it had a lot of things going for it, obviously. Low price point, a fresh concept, relatively speaking. And I feel like I cheated because it's like such an easy thing to come up with at that point, right? Like, wow,
Hmm.
what if Mario was a Metroidvania or something, right? But like, no one fucking did it. And I'm like, well, it's just sitting here. I guess I'll do it. Um, I'm glad I did. I think it put the idea into people's heads, both of like having like a 3D platformer Metroidvania like movement focused thing, but also like the idea that like you can make like this like 3D like adventure game type deal yourself, and like it can be good and it can be like appeal to people, and have make a splash. Because I've seen a few people working on games that are they've either told me or I'm very suspicious that they are for like very very specific reasons that are like that they're inspired by pseudo, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool. um I think it's fucking awesome. I mean, this is part of the reason that I did this, right? I wanted to make the thing that I want to see exist, and
Mm-hmm.
now people are making more things like the thing that I like, so I'm like, yay. And I think it's really cool that I guess, like, again, things like A Short Hike, Hat in Time, um what is it, Siakcho games have inspired me. Have gone on to inspire other people, and I think that's fucking incredible. Still, I still never, I felt like I would be a person who would be doing that. Felt like I would just be in my own bubble, whittling away at whatever I'm doing, just trying to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that didn't end up being where I sat, at least not for right now. I don't know. Maybe I'll disappear into the void again after this, and I'll never release a game in my life after. Hopefully not. I want to release so many games. It's part of my problem, honestly. It's hard
Yeah.
to pick. Um, but yeah, pseudo on the whole, like, again, I was happy things turned out well. It's mostly I just wish I did more in it. I mean, not in the sense of, I think pseudo is exactly as big as it needed to be. You know, it's it's kind of very specific in what's in the game, right? It's very bare bones in a lot of ways, but the
Mm-hmm.
things that are there are like the most important parts. It's like with the right parts polished. I think if anything, that's probably like my greatest strength as a developer, I guess, is like having the ability to get the gesture of the thing that I want to like communicate, but then also like have like just the right parts polished too, to make it so it really punches through without having to like really knuckle down and like make every little thing like, like a mirror sheen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if you've heard the like the sayings, like there's a couple like relating to painting where it's like like the
Broad
last
strokes.
well, yeah, that too. But like the last like what was it? The last like 20% takes 80% of the time, right? That sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or the idea that like a work of art is never it's never finished, it is merely abandoned. Because you can keep, working. You can paint a painting forever if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep changing your mind, going over things, filling in more details until the end of time. But at some point, eventually, you have to be like, okay, I can't. I have to walk away from this now. I have to move on. I have to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, a lot of things, I think will either get into this part mindset of like polishing every little thing to the nth degree, or like they don't have an idea of it at all and they don't polish anything, and
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of end up with like a weird or awkward to play or experience jank thing. But I guess I'm just I've hit a nice middle ground for that, where the things that I put, the eggs that I put into my basket, if that's, I don't know if that's the right, but are like the ones that need to be there the most, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause like, yeah, I don't know. Like, the environment art for pseudo is very bare bones. It's very, blocky. It's literally in a number of places, still the block out geometry, just
Mm-hmm.
tidied up a bit and given some textures. Or the writing is pretty bare bones. Um, Characters, etc. But the map design could be better, but it does what it needs to do, which is, let you, it gives you a space to you know, express the movement and like explore at your own pace and everything without being too restrictive, but giving you opportunities and incentives to actually, try to tackle things um, as they come to you in whatever way seems fit at the time. A lot of soft gates, you know,
Hmm.
as opposed to like hard. Oh, you gotta use the missile on the red door to get through, that sort of thing. And there's a few of those too, granted, but um, you know.
Yeah.
What was the question again?
Honestly, I feel like breaking away from the more intense questions just for a second,
Yeah,
to sort of lighten things just a little bit. Um, I have to ask because I saw like some months ago. Is the Dreambreaker made of salt? Is it salt? Because it's kind of like
so the answer is the completely honest answer is I don't fucking know, but the answer is also maybe. I don't know.
maybe.
Because there is, I mean, there is some. It's not totally a joke. Like there's some legitimacy to it, mostly in that not because she's a goat and she likes salt, but that's a funny like side thing, but because like salt is often considered to have like very like spiritual properties. Um, it's like often like a cleansing thing, and specifically with comes to when it comes to sleep, there's also smelling salts, which
Hmm.
her mission is to try and wake up the dreamer here.
Hmm.
Um, Smelling salts, I think, aren't like literally salt. It's not like in the normal way, but I mean, hey, it's close enough.
It
Um,
works.
yeah. I've honestly always, visually at the very least, I've always pictured it having like, if it was like a higher res thing, I always pictured the Dreambreaker having like a sort of like iridescence. Like maybe
Hmm.
it's probably a little bit more crystalline, honestly, which salt is technically a crystal, I think, but um, I don't know. Obviously, salt is very. If you had a salt lick the size of the Dreambreaker, that would still be pretty decently heavy, and
Hmm.
it is obviously fairly heavy given the sound it makes. And it's also big. I don't know if you saw the video that really made the rounds, I think. But the guy making the Dreambreaker in real life
Oh, I did see that. That was really, really cool looking.
is very cool. I can't believe he just used a solid metal rod for this. I'm like, you're not gonna hollow it out or something, bro? You're not gonna use like sheet metal to like,
It
okay,
needs to
we'll
be
go off.
heavy.
That's fair. Um, I think if I made a slight change, I would probably have like, um, I might even edit the model a little bit just to be a little cheeky, but like put some something to imply more of a tang, of like, oh, the metal like extends further into the pole, so it's like stable, and it like has like some bolts or something that are like not they're not outlaid, but this thing doesn't matter at all, especially considering the setting. But it's I will think about any details about this shit. I have a lot of what is it? I think there's a writing question on here, right? Or a
Oh,
story
I do have a
question.
question about the story. Yeah.
Uh,
Because look, I love Pseudoregalia. Big fan. I've played it way too many goddamn times. But I've done research on it. I've like looked up to see if other people had any other ideas or whatever. But the story
yeah.
is very like underspoken. So like
No,
it's
yeah,
really hard to decipher. And like to be honest, I don't feel like the game really minds that it is that way. I think that
no.
it doesn't really make the game worse by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm.
But it does leave me curious, seeing as how I've played it so many times. I am left curious. Like, is there a message that you wanted, like your players to actually like walk away from the game with?
I don't know if there's like a message explicitly. Obviously, the dreamer says some things at the end, which I think is not really all the sentiment I think is nice. It's not particularly well written. But I know some people are still connected with it, and I appreciate that a lot still. Um, of just not trying to hide away from things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you have to kind of face your problems at some point. But I don't really know if there's like a really explicit message that's like the point. Um, there have been things more about it. I thought a lot about, well, not a lot, but I did think about the plot and the setting and
Mm-hmm.
everything about Pseudo more before and after release, but it was ultimately in a place where I'm very inexperienced with writing, and I didn't really have a ton of time to think about it in the jam
Mm-hmm.
version or the release version because that was still, like 3 months or so, and most of that was still spent making or polishing things. There just wasn't a lot of time to think about things, writing wise. And I know one of the things people there's like the slips of paper that exist in the dream in the game
Mm-hmm.
that you can find around on tables. And yeah, they were supposed to say things, but I just really wasn't confident in being able to fill them in a way that I'd be satisfied with. So I just kind of didn't. And that's kind of the story in general. It does work as is, and I think it's a good framing device. Um, it sets the context and the tone, and it does make it feel like it's a little bit more of a meaningful like thing that where there's still something happening, even if you're not
Mm-hmm.
privy to it, compared to like. I don't know, just like, your standard like platformer Mario kind of adventure thing, right? Where it's just like, yeah, just go for it. And it's like, obviously this is still kind of just go for it. Like, it's not like, I'm trying to figure out the right way to frame this, but like, there is like the implication of like, you are in some kind of setting where there's something happening and things are mattering, and you're not just in like the 3D platformer, like, fun time void land, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I honestly think a lot of people talk about, why 3D platformers, kind of lost relevance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a little bit of it, of that, like, I don't want to say, like, needed to grow up, because that's not accurate, because I think a lot of people appreciate, like, the tone, and, like, like, having a funny cartoon, but things like, I think a lot of people still wanted to make Mario's when people. The thing is, so like you don't get to be like Mario if you're not, except for him, right? Um, like you have to. He has like a prestige and a privilege, but if you're making a new thing, you can't just like. It's hard to present it in a context where it's like, oh, things don't matter and you don't really need to care. Um, you need to like still convince people that like, hey, the things you're doing do matter, and you're in a world where things are contiguous and like, there's thought behind things. And I don't know. It's like, I don't know if you've played like the Big Catch.
I don't think I have actually.
Well, I highly recommend it then if you enjoyed Pseudo. It's not exactly the same, but it's a good example of what I'm talking about. Where if you go through the Big Catches, or the Big Catch tackle box, rather, it's a standalone prologue that is arguably bigger than Pseudo, but
Mm-hmm.
free, and made at, I'd say, definitely a higher standard of quality. At least certainly in terms of its assets, if not its gameplay, which people have gone back and forth on, but I certainly think it's comparable at the very least, if not better. Um, it definitely has different priorities. I guess I can say it's different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but anyway, you can feel a good sense of like you're going through a world with history in that game, Even if it's like empty and there's no NPCs, aside from a single one that you talk to at the beginning.
Hmm.
Um, and like it's the kind of thing that people like, they care to sink their teeth into because, like you said, I think people really want to dig deeper into pseudo. But it's really you really have to start, scratching and stretching and interpreting things with a lot of leeway because of what's in the game right now is extremely threadbare and open to interpretation. And I honestly, I might try to fix or at least add a little bit more in if I can figure something out to go with the Switch release. I don't know yet. I have thoughts again, but
Hmm.
I need to get confidence. I hope the answer to your question, as if there's a takeaway, will have a better answer on the other side of that release. Um, I want to give more insight into what's going on and Sybil herself as well. I'm sure a lot of people are curious about her,
Hmm.
about what her deal is, where she's coming from, why she's doing this, what her goal is, aside from freeing this lady. I've had like, oh, is she from like a secret society? Is she like some sort of like some sort of like entity made for this purpose, or some sort of like dream protector or whatever? I've
Hmm.
heard a bunch of little theories, and I don't want to comment too much again because I might be
You're
giving
fine.
away more. Um, but I do want to give people some more, at least a little bit more solid stuff to go off of.
Hmm.
Um, I think the I do think the lack of narrative is probably the most like, or lack of narrative and context and everything is probably like the most like I don't want to say, I'm trying to think of the right word. Like not painful, but like you can like I feel like it's definitely like it definitely begs for more, I guess, of anything, right? A lot of other things are like either are pretty good to serviceable depending on what aspect it is, but that one I think is the most, just like you said, it's like there. It doesn't like detract necessarily, but it doesn't like at best it leaves you yearning a lot. I don't know. I have a lot of things, games with messages and like themes that I do really want to. I've been thinking about a lot. Maybe a
Hmm.
little too much, honestly, to the point where like it's a little bit of like I don't know, like over like I guess analysis paralysis on my end of like trying to figure things out perfectly before I've even done them, right? Trying to get everything to line up, even though I don't quite have the experience to do that yet. Um, but I'm hoping I can give a little bit more of all those thoughts and ideas to pseudo in some capacity for people. Um, Even if it's not in Pseudoregalia itself. I did say on Steam that
Hmm.
even if I don't do anything else with this game directly, you guys will probably see Sybil again still at some point.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. Um,
Uh,
I guess aside from that, I don't know.
no,
Just
you
have a
answered my
good
question
have good dreams.
fantastically.
It's a funny thing actually. I don't really dream. Um,
No?
no, I'm one of those people that like just well, don't really remember their dreams. And when I do, I have like a dream like maybe twice a year, and I have aphantasia.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't really get like they're not vivid at all. My dreams are like someone when they do happen on occasion, rare occasion, it's like someone like reading a book to me about the dream.
Hmm.
I don't get like imagery. But yeah, generally on the whole, most nights, like 99% of nights, percent, I go to sleep and I wake up and I'm like, well, here I am. Uh, I don't even get like that. that fleeting feeling of like, oh, the crazy dream you experienced. But
Mm-hmm.
I know I do wish we did a little bit better with some aspect. I wanted to really try to get more of like a Psychonauts quality um to the game of like, you can really feel the character's story through the environment, right? You can get a pretty good
Mm-hmm.
picture of their psyche, even if you didn't get any of the other like directly talking to them or the dialogue. It's all just a big metaphor, and that metaphor still exists. Like this is still, this all still exists in Pseudo. It's just a lot looser.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as concrete. I wanted more explicit stuff, more funny things, but that all required, more assets and more unique work to be done. And Pseudo is again, it's a very Spartan game, very very slim. Um,
Um, I know that this isn't on the set of questions that I
yeah,
gave
yeah,
you, but this comes from my own curiosity.
yeah,
Where did the I will kill again guy come from? Where did where did he originate from?
Yeah. Where does he fit into the theme? It's
Yeah, I
true.
wanna know.
Honestly, most of the Goatling dialogue is just spur of the moment stuff. I just thought the Game Jam version was a little too bare bones. I just wanted guys for you to talk to. I honestly wanted more NPCs, but I settled for
Hmm.
just having one model and kind of treating them like Toad, you know,
Yeah.
where they're just kind of everywhere, and they just say things. Um, and sometimes, I try to have them give lore hints or game hints. And other times I'm like, well, there's a guy here. I guess I'll
Hmm.
just write something. I don't know. I just wrote that, and I said it would be temp, and then I didn't change it. There's also another guy who just has the placeholder dialogue box text that I use just to check like dialogue system was working. The three bean casserole guy.
Yeah.
Him. Um, but
From
that
the
was
Twilight Theater, yeah.
yeah, that was just the testing text, and I just said, he can keep it, sure. Um, yeah, he's
Mhm. I was gonna say, even if they are like sort of put there out of convenience, and a lot of their dialogue was not super thought about, I do think that it had a really fun impact on the game. I think it helped
yeah,
break up the more like tense moments as you're running through, and you're getting really into this, and you're starting to get like a little wound up, and then you're like, yeah, I gotta find like another health chunk back here, and then he's just like, I will kill again, and all of a sudden tension's broken. You're back to just being like, I can just enjoy myself. I can just have a good time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think pacing is very important for this sort of stuff, and in lack of like you said, like other greater stuff of just being able to break up the stuff, just talk to a little funny guy is good.
Mhm.
Um, just being able to put other is another thing too. I just we honestly just needed more things to put around. There's so many goddamn health pieces flying around.
Mhm.
It's nice to just have like be able to just you go to a place and your reward is there's a funny little guy there. And they help to demark some of the navigation too in places. It's they're definitely well worth the effort. I'm happy they're there, little dudes. Dudettes, technically. The Goatlings don't technically have like a set gender. You can imagine any of them being anything. I just did not actually end up giving any of them unique characteristics or models. I kind of want to at
Mhm.
least give them like a couple of expressions or something in the Switch update. We'll see.
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
Um,
funny goats.
we love the funny goats. The goatlings are fantastic. If you like, so imagine, you're sitting there at your PC 5 years ago before you ever really started like working on Pseudoregalia, and then you from today, boom, teleports in. from the future, what sort of like game design advice would you give to your younger self?
So if I take this matter of factly, um, my take would be I wouldn't fucking say anything. I don't want to ruin anything. But in a more like, idealistic philosophical sense, it's still kind of hard for me to say, for me specifically, because like I think anything I would say to myself, it wouldn't really stick. Because I'm a person who needs to like learn by doing, and
Mhm.
making the mistakes and stuff. So that's one thing, certainly. It's just, I mean, don't be, and I still have to tell myself this and still fall prey to it all the time, is like, don't be afraid to make mistakes, get out there,
Mhm.
make something bad, fuck shit up. Um, um, uh, to myself, literally, I don't really know if I'd say a lot. Um, I would, at the very least, um, I'd probably tell myself how to actually use state machines.
Those are
Um,
tough.
I've been using state machines for basically the entirety of my dev journey, but of course, I was basically using them wrong up until like this month, which is a little
Oof.
embarrassing to say. But I was using a very like rudimentary version of things, mostly just like enum switches, and it very quickly gets out of hand,
Mhm.
especially at the scale of something like electrokinetic. Just part of the reason I dropped it, honestly, for a while, as it was getting really, really hard to add to that game, because of the structure of the code. It was just becoming unmanageable to add more abilities to a game with like 60 abilities, and keep
Mhm.
track of things and bugs and everything. Um, but now that I actually know how state machines are supposed to work, being their own object state classes and everything, and unique items that you don't have to check themselves. I have a much easier time developing and what is it? Um, and making things and like envisioning larger projects is not nearly as scary now because I have a much more confident confidence in my ability to scale up. So I guess there's that. Um,
Mhm.
which isn't like really profound advice or anything, which is usually what people are thinking about when they ask these questions. Um,
You're totally fine.
uh, yeah, no, I'm trying to think if there is anything. If I'm like speaking more generally to not me as the person but the me as the novice game developer, which I'm assuming is like a stand-in for other novice game developers here. But granted, I still very much am. I still have so much to fucking learn. I still barely know what a fucking shader is, dude. Um, but what is it? Uh, it's hard to say. Um, I mean, there's a lot of things, generally that I feel. It's also hard because I have a warped perspective. I mean, everybody does, right? Everybody can only have their own perspective on things. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, like I got lucky, right? Like, I mean, I like Pseudo. I think it's a good game to an extent. Um, but I also feel like, there are plenty of other games that I think are good, if not better, than Pseudo by varying degrees, and Pseudo did better than most of them. It's in like probably the top 1% of like Steam like successes.
Mhm.
Um, and like I don't know if that's deserved. I don't know if that's or even if that's like more on my part for like I don't think I deserve it, or if like I just think everybody should be lifted up. Which I guess it's both. But um, I feel like a lot of other games, like if I got it, why shouldn't other people? But uh, like I mean, obviously there's like to me, it's like I think it's important that um you make a game that I don't know. Is it dumb to say make a game that you actually like?
No.
Like, I think I don't know. I think a lot of people. Let's. Sorry. It's hard to say. Um,
Hmm.
Oh, I guess actually, you know what? I'll say this more broadly speaking. I think a lot of a thing I see a lot of people do, and this is just in general. This is just part of the artistic process. But if you're more aware of it, then you'll be less susceptible to it. Problem I think I have a lot of people do is they just make when they're making their thing that they like, they just make it like the thing that they like. So if you like Zelda, you just make Zelda. If you like Mario, you just make Mario. If you like, I don't know, Slay the Spire, you just make Slay the Spire, right?
Hmm.
Um, and like that's not a bad thing to do. I think it's actually really important that you make your masterwork, your clone media. I mean, when I started making games, I just made it was basically my bastard child of Mario Odyssey plus Hat in Time, right? Plus whatever else I thought was like kind of interesting. But like if you want to make something that like stands on its own, you really have to get other outside influences and mix them in a thoughtful way that tries to understand your source influences and not just like wear them at a where like it's fine to wear them on your sleeve, but not to like just pull the idea of them as the point instead of like trying to understand what made them good, and how that you can reflect that in your own work if and what aspects are important to you. Like I see a lot of games, very popular right now. It's Hollow Knight, right?
Hmm.
Most in the indie space, I think Metroid. You don't really see as many games that feel like they're aping on Castlevania or Metroid as much as you do as specifically Hollow Knight, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can feel it every time.
For sure.
Uh, and some games do a better mixing of the inspirations than others. But I think the ones that do a better job, they generally do better. Like Nine Souls, you can feel that there is inspiration from Hollow Knight there, but they go in a
Hmm.
totally different direction from it, right? It's barely even a Metroidvania, from what I understand. I've only played a little bit of it, but from what I understand, it's definitely it's almost like more of like a linear action game, like
Hmm.
Sekiro with like Metroidvania elements. It's not less of a platformer, less explory, but you can feel it. A lot of games have taken from Hollow Knight's art, and I think that's fair because Hollow Knight I think a lot of people had trouble doing like high def 2D art for indie games for a while, right? There's kind of that like Xbox Live Arcade look for a while, right?
Yeah.
Where like things are like look like an 8-bit or 16-bit NES game still in like how they're constructed, but they're using extremely like high res assets and it just looks very wrong. I think stuff like Hollow Knight and Ori kind of helped show people how to do those, but not that those are the first games to ever have high def 2D
Hmm.
art, but like the recent ones, and Hollow Knight especially made it like accessible and like I'm like, oh okay, limited color palette, blurry background, people are doing right, and all sorts of stuff, lots of overbrush and everything.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's mostly just you know have a varied palette. Mix your influences. Try to really understand them. Don't just do the surface level things that they're doing. Ask yourself like, what about Hollow Knight's map makes it good? Don't just try to copy the structure or like, why do they have this, the attack and healing system, the magic. What purpose does it serve? What are its strengths and weaknesses? Does it fit my game? If it doesn't, what could I change about it, or whatever else. Same with like I don't know. I could go on and on about this sort of thing, but just again, just have a varied palette. Pull from things that aren't games too. Pull from movies, books, TV shows, life. Any
100%.
experience you have. If you go mountain climbing, if you end up spending a week snowed in the mountains or something, or if you go to a rave, or if you go I forget what it's called when you go like explore abandoned buildings, whatever you do, or if you just have the people you meet, try to make it really pull from all walks of your life, and it'll be a much more, I think, interesting and appealing product.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean that's the point of this sort of stuff, right? It's the point of this art is not to just to say like, well, okay, it's not just to say like I like X, but like to give you a full picture
Mm-hmm.
of like, who you are and like your tastes and opinions and everything distilled into some kind of creative format. And even if you can't quite express it right, it's still there. It's still hopefully, earnest. Um, that's the other thing too. Please be. I think earnesty always comes through better, even if it that is in the way of being goofy. Then uh, it's been very popular, obviously, for a while to be what's the word? It's like the opposite of earnest.
Like self-deprecating?
No, not quite. God, I don't even know if earnest is the word I really meant either. But to to be insincere, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's far better to be sincere than to be insincere. And like I my the swords of my brain is leaving me.
You're totally fine.
Um, than to be like very heady and sarcastic and like lampshade things. I think even if that sort of thing seems good in the moment, it'll always reflect badly and go out of style, I think, or whatever. But like anything that's made with sincerity, I think will both withstand the test of time, both culturally and in terms of your own like personal like things like ways of being, right, your own like view of
Mm-hmm.
it. um it's very rare, I think, that somebody makes a piece of art and is like regretful that they were too sincere and they put too much of themselves into something. um it does happen. I feel like I have heard that sentiment, but that's usually as a result of very strange circumstances. I feel like, I don't know. um Uh, games are cool. If you make a game, make a good game. Don't make it a bad game unless you want to make it a bad game, in which case that's pretty cool too. Also, yeah,
Very fair.
game design only exists in the context of what its purpose is. Don't let the standards of one thing or another, um, like drive, like put like inform you that something should or should not be that way in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like design or art, because it all depends on how it's being done and used and the intent and the purpose and what you want out of it and everything. Um, but fucking what is it? The wall kick and pseudo. I'll have one more fucking thing on this. Is born entirely out of me asking like, man, wall jumps are like kind of a solved issue. It feels like, because a lot of games just kind of do wall jumps the same, right? You
Mm-hmm.
get on the wall, you press the button, and you go back and forth, and maybe you go up once. But I'm like, man, remember Mario 64? And that
Oh
shit, you
God.
could you could fuck up a wall jump. You could bonk on the wall and then fall on your fucking ass, and that's kind of cool. You could also like get weird angles on it. Like, what happened
Mm-hmm.
to that? What if we just did that, but like a little bit less mean? Or like in Super Metroid, you can also fuck up your wall jumps there, but like it takes fucking takes some time to master and get good at. And I think there's a lot of stuff to be mined out of places that people have just kind of accepted things to be standard. But if you just like interrogate that and try to find a different way to interpret things, you can get somewhere new and fresh. Or if you're really stuck for inspiration, you can kind of do the inverse and say, okay, well, what are some things that people did try but didn't work out,
Mm-hmm.
but are interesting, and why? What would it take to make these ideas work? Like, I think the early Zelda games are extremely fascinating. I think they're, to many people, like not particularly good games. You know, Zelda 1 and 2 especially, right?
Hmm.
Um, or like very hard to play at the very least. But I think if you took a lot of those games as like philosophy or ideas, and you kind of again, you know, you like massage them and you think about them and you try to get them, try to like really like with you know, the years of game design experience and everything, and like you know, that we as a collective have had. Um, Try to recontextualize them, you can make something really good and cool. And I mean, Nintendo did that themselves, right? That's how they got the Breath of the Wild.
Hmm.
Is they took everything they've learned and they thought about Zelda 1 and they thought, okay, what was the goal of this game? What can we learn from it? And how do we like recontextualize it in the modern setting and with its goals? It led to, you know, the coolest, or I guess the most different and innovative Zelda game we've had in a long time. And then they didn't do that for Tears of the Kingdom, which I'm not gonna get
Oh,
into.
I have my own things to say about Tears of the Kingdom.
But but that's basically, yeah, it's a very funny because Breath of the Wild is, you know, is that, you know, it's very, they did it, they ripped everything from the ground up, right? Everything is
Hmm.
considered, and maybe some things are here and there about it, but everything is new and in service to its new direction. Tears of the Kingdom just feels like it just kind of without question just kind of doubled down on all of Breath of the Wild's philosophies, but didn't really have any like new like radical new ideas or directions of its own to take, which is very weird because I feel like
Hmm.
that's not really as of it. It took the longest to make and is also like the most iterative sequel at the same time compared to, you know, like even like other like Spirit Tracks or Phantom Hourglass or of course Majora's Mask, which all feel much more different than their counterparts. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that. We could talk fucking 6 hours about Zelda bullshit, but yeah. Anyway, cool games are cool. Make a cool game.
Games are
If you make
cool. Make
games that
cool
love you.
games.
If you make games that love you, if you play games that love you. Mwah.
Um, as a final question, just
Yeah.
to sort of wrap things up, if you had to like choose just a few, um, because there are so many. If you had to choose a few of like your favorite like indie games or developers that you think go like underappreciated, like for example, um, Team Cherry, we love Hollow Knight, but it is not underappreciated.
No.
Um, if you had any like things that you would like to recommend to the people at home listening to
Um,
this.
I wish I had I wish I had a better or warm up on this one actually. The things I think of most are the people I know of. Like
Hmm.
obviously, you know, or talk to in some capacity. Obviously, you know, I said my friend Matt, he helped me
Hmm.
with this game, and he made Vernal Edge, which before Pseudoregalia, which is a 2D Metroidvania with like character action kind of combat and like an islands, like a kind of a Wind Waker structure almost.
Hmm.
Not quite, but it's like an overworld and islands, right? Um, it's a pretty good game, but it didn't do nearly as well as it deserved, I think. So shout outs to that. I mean, there's a lot of people making cool stuff. You know, we have I don't know, like Bryce Butcher. He's making 500 caliber contracts and has a few games under his belt.
Hmm.
Um, we have oh, what's their name? Um, we have Melos. And with Analgesic Productions, you know, they're making Angeline Era, and it looks very cool. They made
Hmm.
Anodyne and Sephany recently ish. Um, you know, there's Fever Dream Johnny. He made Orbo's Odyssey. He's making Orbo's Exodus. It's a big step up from the first game. Uh, and
I saw that one. It looks
Johnny's
really neat.
yeah, Johnny's crazy. He's great. He's got such a wonderfully creative mind. I wish I was like as willing to just like go in on stuff as he is. Um, just have an idea and run with it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, Ah, God. Like I said, I wish I had. I'm trying to like rapidly scrolling through my Steam list to see if there's like anything that really sticks out to me. Hey, shout outs to Vivid Lope. That's a cool game. Kitten Burst too.
Hell yeah.
Um, I really like Kitten Burst. I need to actually finish it, but I'm like almost at the ending. Um, I really love the wave of you know, like and saying Y2K is a little bit like pastiche. It's like, or that's not the word, but like it's such a broad, descriptor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but still, there is definitely still a wave of like Y2K inspired stuff starting to crop up now. And I'm even in that a little bit, I think, with electrokinetic especially. That's supposed to be very like vector, I don't know what to call it, like vector core, like, flat colors, like cyberspace sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um uh but yeah, I think Vivid Lope and Kitten Burst both like hit that like early 2000s like kind of Dreamcast for Vivid Lope and like like just internet era. And
Mm-hmm.
Bryce too with 500 caliber contracts, a different angle of it with like the grittier, I guess, side of things, but still within that like that space. They're all wonderfully done. Um, uh, I'm sure I could if I had, there's a million things, but
Oh,
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
There's a lot of games out there. I encourage people to, go on there, the very least. Go onto your Steam thing and go through your queue and just like do it like 6 more times. Because Steam's gonna start getting desperate. They're gonna stop showing you like Call of Duty and Balatro and all that, and they're just gonna start showing you weird shit with like 20 reviews that you've never heard of. After you go through it a few times, I found a decent amount of games just by doing that
Mm-hmm.
that are interesting. I think it's well worth doing. Just go through your discovery queue and all that. But yeah,
Do you have any like, and I know that was I said final question.
yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I'm fine. Yeah, we're talking. It's good.
But do you have any like final thoughts or like anything that you feel like you want to get said that we haven't like previously said, things that I missed, because this is my first time actually conducting an interview.
Oh yeah, no,
Um,
no, it's fine. Um, hard to say. I mean, obviously, I've gone and rambled about a lot. Um, so I don't really know if there's another thing off the top of my head. I guess if I can speak just briefly on like where I'm at with things.
for sure.
Um, like I said, I'm still working with the contractor on the Switch port for Pseudo,
Hmm.
with a little bit of a quality of life update and maybe a little bit more. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not. I don't want to promise anything. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm a fickle person. Very spontaneous. So who knows? But I'm working on that. I've been working on a refactor of Electrokinetic, like I said. That's been
Hmm.
going well. I'll probably be like most of the way done with it by the end of the month. And then from there, hopefully I can pick up development a little bit more on it and maybe um if I want to continue. I was saying on Blue Sky that even if I don't continue Electro right now, because I've been very back and forth on what project to actually like dedicate myself to next.
Hmm.
Even if I just did this refactor, it was more than worth it because I can like build any whatever else I want now with so much more ease. Um, but there's also I've been back and forth on making something that is more of a follow-up to Pseudo in some way or shape or form. Goodnight Sunlight was supposed to be the next game, the next serious game I made. And I still feel like what I want out of Goodnight Sunlight with the Goblin Girl
Hmm.
um, is a little bit out of scope, but it was supposed to be. after Pseudo, like the most like direct successor of like being a Metroidvania, 3D platformer, open, like fantasy world,
Mhm.
um, much more thought out lore and story, granted, but maybe again a little too much in some places, but also not nearly enough in others. I don't know. But I'm really trying to find this in between game right now, and maybe it's Electro, maybe it's um, I mean, I've been back and forth on something a little bit more adventure-y. That's extremely vague. A little bit more, I guess I'll be a little bit more like Zelda-y, with like kind of like an overworld and dungeon structure, but still like open-ended.
Mhm.
But I don't know if that's something I'll stick to or not. Um, but just I guess keep an eye out. I might start posting about whatever I'm doing again more on Blue Sky. I'm hoping I can at least have something, even if not released, at least playable for people
Mhm.
this year. Maybe just an Electro demo. And if I do, I'd really appreciate feedback for that because I'm still not entirely sure where that game needs to go, which is part of the reason again it's drag my feet with it, amongst others, as 3D platformer roguelike. Not really something that exists in like a grander sense. I don't
Mhm.
really know. I both don't exactly know what I want out of it and what people want out of it. Um, and I think if I the original version of Electrokinetic was supposed to basically just be an excuse to um just have like kind of an infinite sandbox to just jump around in with like a creative move set basically. But the issue was like as a game, as a roguelike, as a game, most people, not most, but like a good chunk of people that did test the early build, they would get their, um, they would find the abilities they found comfortable,
Mhm.
and then they would just stick to that, right? And the game didn't give you nearly enough incentive to experiment or force you to ever or work with what you have, which I think is a lot of the fun with roguelikes, right? Um, having to improvise, you know.
Mhm.
So I needed to take a lens to it. And I have some pretty good ideas about how to do that now. Nothing too crazy, I think, especially with the roguelike space, but still, they're there now at least. So we'll see if I get to any of those. Um, and also, on that note, Matt is also working on a new project separately from me. He's doing like kind of a co-op. I think I can say this. He's like posted about it on Twitter or Blue Sky now, like kind of some kind of co-op thingy with like astronaut people. Um, but it'll have some movement. It'll have some a little bit, not at the ton, but a little bit. It'll feel good to move around in. Tell you that.
Mhm.
It'll have more puzzly stuff, encountery things. A little bit of that like again like co-op shenanigans. Like I don't know, but it's cool. Um, and Matt was also working on the big catch. And he still is actually, just not as much, because he's doing his own thing as well. But he's still working on the big catch too, and definitely look out for that because I think if the big catch. So I don't like I'm not like super privy on things, right?
Mhm.
But I played the tackle box demo, and I've seen a tiny bit of what, and I've heard a little bit of what the full game is. And if that game sticks to landing, and I definitely think they have the potential to, that could definitely be like the next like Hat in Time in terms of like indie like 3D reception. Like it's also like I think the most like meaty one of these games will end up being, because again
Mhm.
the tackle box is like 6 or 7 hours or something, or 4 to 10 depending on your completion time, I
That's
guess.
crazy.
Yeah, and that's free, and that's like I don't exactly know how much, but it is like a fraction of some description of the main game. And I think one reason that people have been like kind of sleeping on some of these indie platformers is they're all really short.
Mhm.
People like to be able to sink their teeth in this, and they don't need to be like super long, but like for a lot of people, I've heard like, oh, I'm not really as interested in playing like like a 2 to 5 hour experience. I want like at least like a good like like 10 to 20, you know. And I think it'll probably be in that ballpark, something actually decently meaty for people to get into. I don't know for sure. Again, I'm not like on the team or have a lot of insider knowledge. I think it's just kind of hearsay, but definitely keep an eye out for the big catch. I don't know if it's coming out next year or the year after, or the year after that. I think they want to try to get it within the next couple of years, of course, but
Yeah.
um good ass game. I think you said you haven't played the tackle box again. Definitely big recommend it. If you also Corn Kids and
Oh, I know
Coward
about Corn
Dreams.
Kids.
Yeah, they're both other 3D platformers came out. I don't know what it
Mhm.
was about last year where we had 3D platformers that are N64 styled where you go into dreams,
It's
and two
a
of them had
wacky
goats.
coincidence.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of it's like I did know about Cavern of Dreams already. Wasn't really like super thinking about it, but I didn't know about Corn Kids. Corn Kids came out of nowhere and just added to the layers of like Dream and Goat and N64, and that had been worked on for like I think the better part of a decade or some shit like that. In
Hmm.
private. Um, I really I really appreciate like big shout outs to Bogo Soft because that game did pretty well for itself. And it had like no marketing at all. And I mean like it didn't even have like a social media presence.
Hmm.
That game got its sales almost purely through word of mouth. I think that's really impressive and speaks to like the sheer quality of that game. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna cut myself off there because I keep talking forever about whatever.
Yeah,
But
you're totally
I guess
fine.
yeah, I guess if you have any specific question to end off with, then feel free. But otherwise, I guess I'm done.
I feel pretty happy with everything you've already said. I will finish things off just making absolutely certain.
Mhm.
I'm planning to release like highlights of this conversation in the main video I'm making.
Yeah.
It's not really an insanely long video, like filled with a ton of shit. So a
I'm so
lot of
sorry.
this.
That was an accident.
Oh, you're totally fine.
I accidentally left.
Um, I don't think that this like all of this will get into the video.
Yeah. No, I didn't
Um,
expect it.
so I was asked. I just wanted to like make sure it was all right. If I
Yeah.
released the full
Oh,
interview like in like a separate space.
I think that's probably fine. Yeah. Um.
Because
uh,
I think people are interested. If someone else released this, I would want to see it.
that's fair. I don't know how interesting of a person I am, but I mean, I'm happy. I appreciate it. I appreciate that people are interested. I don't want to conflate myself with the game too much because I know like they're not necessarily the same thing. Like just because someone likes Pseudo doesn't necessarily mean that they want to hear me prattle on about it for like an hour and a half, you know? But some people do, and I do appreciate that. I think that's very cool.
I think you're the shit you made is fucking awesome. So
Well,
uh
thank you.
I keep
Yeah,
checking out on Twitter what you're up to. Blue Sky.
yeah.
I
I know
actually
I
didn't
don't
know you
post
had
a
a
lot.
Blue Sky till recently.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
So that was
posted.
cool to find. Like seeing you repost all the like games that other people are working on. You've got like
Yeah,
little bits of what you're working on, little hellos and stuff.
yeah,
Um
yeah. Hopefully, I'll settle on something. Like I said, I need to find that in between game. I still want to make. I occasionally post about the Tiger Girl. Um,
that
I
looks
really
really
want to make.
cool.
I really want to make a her character action kind of God Hand inspired thing at some point. But I just need to find the right spot to work on it. I don't think I'm there yet, but I might be soon-ish.
Mhm.
I will say, honestly, my order has also been a little bit shaken up too, because I think after whatever I'm doing right now, whether it's some Zelda-ish take thing or electrokinetic or uh I don't know, whatever else, probably 3D platform adjacent, I'll probably try to do something in a different direction, like small scale. But after this, I
Mhm.
think I do want a little bit of a break from just working on 3D platformers. Maybe that won't manifest as a whole game, but it would be a good excuse to like work on the Tiger Girls action game or the Axolotl Girls like shooting game, third person shooter, um, platformer, sin and punishment kind of deal. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
We'll see. I'm a fickle beast, like I said, and I get the privilege of being able to do that because a lot of people like Pseudoregalia, and I'm very thankful for that.
Hell yeah. Um.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I keep bringing things up. There was the reception angle. I don't think I really expressed fully. Like I again, I am fucking blown away. I thought this game would sell like, oh, but man, I hope we can sell like 10,000 copies. That would be awesome, and it still would have been, but it sold a lot
Mhm.
more than that.
Yeah.
Um, I had very small because it was really just supposed to bide me some time. But I'm eternally grateful that as many people took to it as they did.
Mhm.
Uh, so thank you for enjoying it, playing it, and everybody else too.
Well, thank you and friends for making it. It's fucking awesome. Uh, I will say, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and have this little interview. Um, I It was lovely to get a little bit more insight into the things that weren't directly talked about on Twitter and be able to hear like your thoughts on all of it. Super, super interesting. So thank you so much.
I'm glad you think so, and thank you again too. I feel like I'm a little bit scatterbrained. I'm sure one day maybe I've done like an interview like this like a few times now, but I
Mhm.
always end up again kind of rambly and I get off topic and stuff a bit. But one day I'll get better at being concise, but it's not today.
Either way, thank you so much for joining. I think I'll let you go and have the rest of your day.
Yeah, no, thank you
Um,
so much, honey.
yeah.
And that's very funny to say. Um, and hey,
Everyone gets used to it.
happy holidays. I don't
Yeah.
know if or what you celebrate, but surely something. um,
I hope you guys had as much fun watching that video as I had making it. I'm really excited for the future of what this channel has to offer. Thank you once again to my patrons, Ina_IV and Kimakaru, for helping support the channel and making it so that I can actually even do things like this. I'll try not to take up too much of your guys' time. Check out all of the links in the description to see more of what Rittzler is up to, and I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.